New border technology may be a game changer in monitoring the Arizona-Mexico border.
It's called integrated fixed tower because it has different platforms. It has a day and night camera. It has a radar. What the radar does, it sweeps 24/7 this whole valley that we're looking at. As you can see, the terrain is very, very remote. It's in the middle of nowhere per se. Anything out here, that radar is going to pick it up.
From border security to a rare inside look at a safe house for Central American refugees.
I've heard some of their stories, and they're long and difficult, and I know they've come from a terribly dangerous and fearful situation, and so they fled. But they are tremendously resourceful and resilient, and they come through with their kids with incredible courage.
Those who live, work, or are impacted by the borderlands. This is Arizona Week. Hi, I'm Nancy Montoya, in for Lorraine Rivera. With all the talk by presidential candidates calling to secure the border, you might think that border crime and illegal crossings are out of control. The reality is that since 9/11, the border has never been safer. Even so, the drug cartels are a never-ending present threat. This new technology is giving border agents more eyes and ears. It's been a decade since the Department of Homeland Security launched its high-tech SBI Net, the Secure Border Initiative, a virtual fence across the southern Arizona border. But the technology did not work, and it was canceled in 2011, with more than $1 billion wasted. Critics say the problem was that the government rushed into it without really involving the Border Patrol, and that the government failed to supervise the primary contractor, the Boeing Company. Customs and Border Patrol officials are making another try at using upgraded technology to secure the border. This time, they're telling Congress and taxpayers that it will work. Here's Mark Borkowski, who heads up Customs and Border Patrol's technology program. He's addressing a recent congressional hearing.
As you know, there's a past program called SBI Net, which was a very challenging program. And although it eventually delivered very effective capability, we concluded it was not the right system to go across the entire border, and it was much too expensive. So we scaled down our ambitions somewhat and selected a much more modest portfolio of systems that the Border Patrol selected and tailored to each area of the border. We focused that on Arizona because that's where the action was at the time. We are in the throes of completing that plan, which we call the Arizona Technology Plan.
What is the Arizona Technology Plan? Well, it's made up of tried and true technology that has been tweaked for border use. It's technology already being used by the Department of Defense. It relies on off-the-shelf equipment that doesn't need to be engineered from the ground up like the failed SBI Net system. The main component is a tower that looks like an elaborate cell phone tower. But as you look closer, you see cameras. Lots of cameras. Now, we've had towers and we've had cameras on the border for decades. What makes these different?
The radar packages that they have. So the radar packages that they have are very good at. They can sweep the area 24/7.
Customs and Border Protection agent Vicente Paco says eventually there will be 52 such towers in and around the Nogales border crossing in the Tucson sector. Right now, there are 7. They're called integrated fixed towers.
It's called integrated fixed tower because it has different platforms. It has a day and night camera. It has a radar. What the radar does, it sweeps 24/7 this whole valley that we're looking at. As you can see, the terrain is very, very remote. It's in the middle of nowhere per se. Anything out here, that radar is going to pick it up. If there's any movement it was something that was there that wasn't there before, he's going to send a signal to the operator sitting south in the camera room in Nogales.
CBP has used underground sensors for years. The sensors, buried a couple of feet down from the surface, can detect movement, but not much else.
Where before in an area like this, we might have underground sensors that alerts us of activation. We were responding to the unknown. with this technology here and the packages that this tower has, it allows us to understand what we're responding to. For example, we might have a group of migrants. You know, we might send 1 or 2 agents in there. What if it's a group of narcotic smugglers? The technology here allows us to see if the individuals are carrying arms, allows us to see if the individuals are hunched over with a big square on their backs, you know, what we call drug mules or burreros. So then we send additional resources like that. We have a BORTAC team. It's a Border Patrol Tactical Unit. And they can rappel down from helicopters, and they're kind of like our SWAT per se. And we'll use the necessary force to the threat, you know, that we're seeing.
Just how good are these super sensitive high-tech cameras?
We have seen the cameras being so good that they can, if they get into a vehicle, we can zoom into the vehicle license plate and get a license plate number.
From one of the highest vantage points in this valley, just north of Nogales, we saw a different kind of Border Patrol unit. That same integrated technology from this skyscraper-like tower, for the first time, is mounted onto a custom-fitted truck.
This truck could be packed up right now and be moved somewhere else where we have activity.
As for the towers and the low-tech cameras that have been part of the border landscape for decades, they're being retrofitted with the new technology.
And some of them have been here for 20 years, but it's just a camera, day and night camera. Those have also been upgraded. So the technology on those is similar. It's a little different, no radar on it, but it has like a smart camera where it detects illegal activity or movement.
The price tag for all of this new technology for the first phase is around $145 million, and the contract was awarded to an Israeli-based defense company, unlike the billions that went to the U.S. companies for the scrapped SBI Net program. Is the new technology working? Well, we really don't know. The Homeland Security Inspector General's audit criticized Customs and Border Patrol for failure to keep reliable data, so it makes it difficult to track the success of the integrated fixed towers. But Border Patrol officials say the Arizona Technology Program is working. They say illegal crossings in Arizona are down by 25% from this time last year. Officials say equally important is that the U.S. government has learned from prior costly mistakes. This time, Border Patrol is on board with input and recommendations.
There are, I think, a lot of lessons that we've learned about things we shouldn't do. We can't impose technologies on people who use it. We have to involve them, and they have to invite us to bring technologies. That's a classic mistake. And we often get attracted by the bright, shiny thing, and we don't think about why or how it will help us do our jobs.
Border Patrol agents such as Vicente Paco say they know the latest technology is essential, but technology cannot replace the human touch, because the border, he says, is not some kind of inanimate object. It is made up of people.
So your mission isn't just to protect the border, it's to protect the people of the border.
Preserve human life, yes. So the preservation of human life is important to all of us because it affects us, all of us. I've been in situations personally where people have died in my hands of trying to render aid. And you know, even though we have to do our job, we have to do our job humanely.
Now, 10 years ago, Yuma was the busiest illegal border crossing in the nation. That led to increased criminal activity all over the entire county. But today, illegal crossings are down by 90%, making Yuma County a safer place to live and work. In 2005, Yuma County was infamous for having the highest apprehension rates of undocumented border crossers along the entire 2,000-mile U.S.-Mexico border. Leon Wilmot, the Yuma County Sheriff, says that designation made him cringe every time he heard the statistics.
Because in 2005, we were the worst in the nation, over 200 and some odd thousand apprehensions by Border Patrol in the Yuma sector alone. And the ancillary crimes that came with that was a significant public safety concern for us in law enforcement here, because we were experiencing rapes, robberies, and even homicides along the international boundary between the United States and Mexico.
The problem, says Sheriff Wilmot, wasn't the individual undocumented worker looking to earn money to support his family. It was a much more diabolical entity that needed to be stopped.
And the problem was these cartels were smuggling these folks across the border, and then you had this other criminal element that would come across the border and then rob, rape, or murder folks and then run back into Mexico.
That was then. Today, Yuma has had a complete turnaround. Crime is down by 60% from the same period 10 years ago. And according to a report by the U.S. Government Accountability Office, there has been a 94% decrease in illegal border crossings in the Yuma sector. What has made the difference? First, the federal government made Yuma a priority by investing millions in the border infrastructure. More secure and better pedestrian and automobile crossings became a priority. And then there is this fence, a 20-foot-high steel curtain running over a 9-mile stretch, separating Yuma County from Mexico.
When they started building the fence, that was the biggest impact right away, because obviously you have a lot of folks down on the border because they're building a fence. So that's going to push your criminal element out of this area.
It also made it nearly impossible for people on foot looking for work to cross the border. Critics say forcing illegal crossers into more remote and deadly desert areas caused an increase in border deaths. Wilmot agrees that was the case initially, but he says once word got out that crossing in Yuma was almost impossible, the death rates have actually gone down.
The deaths in the desert that we were experiencing have dropped astronomically. The stolen vehicles that were being stolen either out of Phoenix, Yuma, San Diego, and utilized to transport drugs across the desert and across our river, that all stopped because they were able to put in that permanent infrastructure.
Wilmot says he dismisses politicians who say there needs to be this kind of a fence or even a wall throughout the entire 2,000-mile border. This massive fence, for instance, is only 9 miles long and is in a densely populated area.
Where we're at right now, the only barrier between the United States and Mexico is the Colorado River.
That's Captain Eben Bratcher, a 20-year veteran of the Yuma County Sheriff's Department. He says walling off the U.S. from Mexico is not only impractical, but would also place a burden on U.S. citizens, especially here in Yuma.
And if you put up a fence here, you have sacrificed what is public land and American citizens' right to enjoy the land and come out here and fish or hunt, recreate, hike, whatever they want to do. I don't want to be the one who says, no, you can't do that anymore.
And that's why the Yuma County Sheriff says those who credit a fence and technology for securing a border are only getting it partially right. He says another major contributing factor has to do with coordinated communications among all law enforcement departments in the county.
The key word on this whole thing was collaboration. Federal, state, and local entities, all combining resources.
And so here in Yuma County, while members of the Sheriff's Department celebrate successes, they also know that the future depends on vigilance. It will take continual coordination, continual efforts from Border Patrol and the federal government. And of course, it will take maintaining Yuma's end of the fence.
We were tired of going to investigate deaths out in the desert because that's a hard process to go through because of the remoteness out in our deserts. You know, a lot of people don't agree with the fence, but for me, if it saved 1 or 2 lives, then it was worth every penny, because I myself and our officers have had to go out and pick up 14 dead people that were abandoned by a smuggler. Now, to go process a scene that's 2 miles roughly in diameter and to see what they went through and the condition that they were in, that hits you at the core.
A significant dent in illegal border crossings has proven a great benefit to Yuma County. At the same time, the number of legal border crossers is also down. That fact isn't good news to Yuma Valley farmers. Yuma County shares its entire southern border with Mexico, a fact that means U.S. and Mexico residents in this area are interdependent. Every day, 40-year-old Demesio Gonzalez crosses the border near San Luis, Mexico, and San Luis, Arizona, to work in the fields near Yuma. He works on land owned by the Pasquinelli Produce Company. 70-year-old Bob Pasquinelli's family has farmed in the Yuma Valley for 70 years. Gonzalez and Pasquinelli don't know one another, and yet their livelihoods rely on each other. Demesio's workday is both arduous and time-consuming.
I wake up at 2 in the morning to cross the line to get to this side. I then sleep for a bit until 6 in the morning to be ready to come to work.
Demesio works a 10-hour day. He crosses the border legally. His efforts contribute to Yuma County's more than $3 billion annual agricultural industry.
Agriculture is our number one economic driver. It's about a $3.2 billion a year industry, and it's a big part of what we do here.
And no one knows that better than Bob Pasquinelli. The Pasquinelli Produce Company grows mostly leafy greens, cauliflower, and melons. The senior Pasquinelli says staying in business means dealing with issues he has little control over.
Well, mainly, labor and water and disease are our big concerns. Probably labor, number one, and disease, number two. And then, of course, we're always worried about the water system with the drought we've had for the last, 10, 12 years.
And there's yet another important issue Yuma Valley growers say is directly threatening their survival. Again, something they have very little control over: U.S. immigration laws.
The person that tries to do it legally, it takes them 4 to 5 years sometimes to get a permit. So I don't know how our system's fair to people trying to come across legally. This time of the year, you're looking at a labor force of 30, maybe 20,000 people out here in the desert Southwest, between harvest crews and pre-harvest crews and your irrigators and tractor drivers and whatever. It just takes a big force.
Pasquinelli says gone are the days of Mexican laborers working on this land for pennies on the dollar of what an American worker would be paid.
Most of these people are making, $10, $12 an hour, plus they have benefits. They'll get vacation pay and sick leave and health insurance. So it's not really the wages that's holding them back. I think it's just the idea that it's hard labor.
That's a misconception, isn't
Right.
it? That the Mexicans come across and work for pennies on the dollar.
No, that is a misconception.
Demesio knows that firsthand. He says the larger farms do pay a fair wage, and that's good because he works hard and needs to take care of his family.
My family would struggle because I am the only support for my family. I am the only one that works. My sons are in school, getting an education, so I must support the entire family. But even when my sons are not in school, they would not cross the border to work because it is almost impossible to get the right paperwork to do it legally.
Right now, Mexico's economy is on an upswing. The middle class is rising, and so are wages there. Add better wages to increased difficulty crossing legally, plus an anti-immigrant atmosphere, and you get fewer young, hardworking Mexican men willing to come to the U.S. to toil in the fields.
Labor force that we have now is getting older, and there's no new labor coming across. We get most of our labor that comes out of Mexico daily, and so to get visas and work permits has been difficult for people. It takes a long time.
Pasquinelli says looking to D.C. for a solution is hopeless. Lawmakers, he says, seem to be more interested in pointing fingers than finding solutions. If you think this is a D.C. problem that impacts only places like Yuma and that it doesn't impact you, you'd be wrong. Next time you eat a salad, think Yuma.
We're the winter vegetable capital of North America, so if you eat a salad during the winter months in New York or Canada, there's about a 95% chance that the lettuce that you're eating came right out of the fields here in Yuma. One of the other things that we do that's so important for the entire world, feeding the world, is we grow a lot of seed crops here because a lot of other nations don't have the resources to grow their own food, let alone seed crops. And so we're growing seeds here, and probably about 75 or 80% of that seed that we're growing is being shipped out of the country.
Taking care of their community and their families. Gonzalez and Pasquinelli have found their common ground. Pasquinelli jokes they should send him and his workers to D.C. to pass laws.
What about all of this just really frustrates you? I mean, we were talking a little bit ago, and I wanted you to actually solve the immigration problem right here and now. But what really frustrates
we
you?
just, we need to change our immigration policies and make it more friendly where we can use more people. Our domestic labor doesn't want to do this type of work, so we need a force that's willing to do it.
In the 1980s, a nationwide sanctuary movement was born right here in Arizona to give refuge to Central Americans fleeing civil wars in their home countries. Well, again, turmoil in Central America is forcing people to flee in fear for their lives. While the U.S. government is granting temporary legal entry to those seeking asylum, it is the faith-based communities that are setting up safe houses. Here is a rare look inside one of those homes and the volunteers who make it work.
Okay. Vamos a ver ahorita. Y si no tienes, lo podemos ir a recoger.
By the time families made up mostly of women and very young children get to this nondescript house located in Midtown Tucson, they are exhausted. This baby lays almost motionless. His mother says it's the first time in days he has been able to fall into a deep sleep. Just a few minutes before, he sat on her lap as she revealed why she fled the city of Tegucigalpa, Honduras, to this safe house in Tucson, 2,500 miles away. She still fears for the safety of her family and asks that we not show her face.
We left Honduras because they killed my brother. They were going to kill everyone in our family.
And so Fatima says she, her 3 young children, and her husband fled. The person they feared was a gang leader. Fatima says the gang wanted their property, and when they defied the gang leader, he killed her brother. It is not an unusual scenario for families fleeing the violent, gang-controlled countries of Central America. Most believe that if they can make it to the U.S., there will be sanctuary. Thousands of families have made the perilous journey north. When they reach the U.S. border, if they can prove they have a place to go with a family member or a friend in the U.S., they are released, pending an asylum hearing in the city they are going to. In 2014, thousands of Central American families were dropped off by ICE and the Border Patrol at the Tucson Greyhound bus station to make their own way. But the Tucson faith-based community has mobilized, and now they are working with immigration officials. And so an unlikely partnership has developed.
There may seem like, it's polar opposites or something, but a lot of the agents that we work with, are happy to work with us, we're happy to work with them, and we have a good relationship. And they're happy the families can come here and be taken care of. So we have 7 Pedialytes that we need. ¿Y cuántos hijos tiene? We work with ICE, and they will contact us, or Border Patrol will contact us when they have families to release.
This is Casa Elitas. That's Spanish for Home with Wings. It was established through Catholic Community Services.
Right away, we just want to let them know that we're a church program, we're volunteers, we're here to help them out so that they kind of understand where they are. Dehydration is an issue, so right away we're, making sure everyone's hydrating. A lot of times the first thing that the families want to do is take a shower, and so they might not have clean clothes to change into, so we have a little clothes closet where they can pick out some new clothes.
It takes weeks, sometimes even months, for families to make their way from Central America through Mexico and to the Arizona border. The journey is uncertain and dangerous. When families run out of money, many beg for help. Often they are robbed and beaten. Fatima says it happened to them in a remote area just north of Los Mochis in the state of Sinaloa. Other travelers warned them of the bandits.
Por ahí porque
Don't go through there because they will kill you. There are so many bad people. In the name of God, in the name of God, we kept going. We were crying, and finally we got through.
I've heard some of their stories, and they're long and difficult, and I know they've come from a terribly dangerous and fearful situation, and so they fled.
David Buss is a volunteer at Casa Elitas. He says he sees the pain in the eyes of the mothers, but he is quick to add that he also sees something else.
You know, actually the first thing that popped into my mind was resilience. They are tremendously resourceful and resilient, and they come through with their kids with incredible courage and aplomb. So I see that. I see that resilience, and that they will, given half a chance, they will flourish in this country.
All of the families that come to us have a sponsor somewhere in the U.S. So it's usually a family member, sometimes a friend, and we give them a call, we let the families talk to them and let them know they're okay, let them know where they are, and then they'll pass the phone to a volunteer and we'll explain how to start buying their bus tickets so that they can go travel to be with their family. So once we get that process going, the families will call us back when they have the ticket and we know what time they're going out, and then between that and the time they have to leave, if they have to spend the night, we have beds.
As for the children, they seem to rebound almost as fast as they can ride a bike. For now, there is no more fear. For now, there is joy.
What is amazing to me is just exactly that. Kids are kids, and they want to play. They want to get in, and they're a little shy at first, but boy, it doesn't take them very long to get over that. And they're out playing, and
that joy may be short-lived. Even though the U.S. State Department has confirmed the accounts of extreme violence in Central American countries, the latest reports from U.S. immigration officials shows that so far, 80% of Central American families that have applied for asylum have been rejected and will likely be deported to the countries they came from. As you can see, the story of the border has many facets. The search for security, sanctuary, and sustainable food supply. On future programs, we'll continue to explore the complicated dynamics of the borderlands. I'm Nancy Montoya. Lorraine Rivetta will be back next week. Thank you for watching Arizona Week.